Alright, so now we're going to look at the distal leg and the foot bones. In the distal leg we have the big bone is the tibia, the small narrow bone is the fibula. As we get distal, meaning towards the end, we have these two bumps that are created by the tibia as well as the fibula. They're kind of like the stylus processes of the radius and the ulna. What they do is they cradle the ankle, sort of, and they're called the lateral malleolus and the medial malleolus. The lateral malleolus is on the fibula, the medial malleolus is on the tibia. So what they do is they cradle this bone right here. And this bone here is the talus bone. That's the first tarsal that we're going to look at. When we take it apart a little bit, we give it some room, we see how this bone is sort of like a cube-shaped bone with a nice surface, a rounded surface on top, and that's where it articulates with the tibia mainly. We bring this model back, we can see that now here how the tibia is the main bone that articulates with the talus. When we move, well, when we look at the other big bone here, this one in the heel bone is called the calcaneus. The big piece that is attached to the calcaneus back here comes from above is the Achilles tendon, or also called calcaneal tendon. Then from these two big bones we have a bunch of smaller bones. They're right in here. Right in here. So we can sort of separate the foot into two. On the calcaneus side, we have one bone that's called the cuboid bone. That's the most lateral of the little tarsal bones that we have in the midsection here. And then the cuboid bone articulates with the fourth and the fifth metatarsal. Remember, in the hand they were metacarpals, in the feet they're called metatarsals. And then on the other side, in front of the talus, anterior to the talus, we have a bone that's called a navicular bone. And if we actually look at it, it sort of looks like a boat, a little bit. Anterior to the navicular bone, we're going to have three bones that have the same name, and they're called the Cuneiform Bones. We have a big daddy, a mommy, and a fat kid. The medial one, medial cuneiform, is the big daddy. Then we have the fat kid, that's the intermediate cuneiform. And then we have the mommy, and that's the lateral cuneiform. Make sure it's not, to understand it, it's not lateral looking at the foot, but it's the lateral most cuneiform. And in essence, we can kind of think of those as extensions of the metatarsals, because we have the medial cuneiform, then is followed by the first metatarsal, which forms the big toe. When we go further down, or also known as the hallux. Big toe is known as the big toe's medical term is the hallux. Then we have the second one, and we have the third one. The second one goes to the intermediate cuneiform, and the third one comes from, or articulates with, the lateral cuneiform. And then we have the toes, and the toes are like in the hand, they're phalanges. We have in the big toe, the hallux, we have a proximal and a distal phalanx, and in all the other toes we have a proximal, a middle, and a distal phalanx. When we take a foot that's a bit better articulated here or put together, we can see a medial arch that's right here, and that's a distribution of the weight force coming down from above when we walk. We also have a transverse arch that goes right in here, but we haven't mentioned that in the class, but that's right in this area. When we look at the motions of the foot, we have two main motions that we look at. One is up and down, one is a little sideways. This up motion is dorsiflexion. The down motion is plantar flexion. The way I remember that is I'm planting my foot into the ground when I put my toes down. And then we have a motion that is sort of bringing the foot this way, like many people sprain their ankle this way, because we have ligaments on the outside that are not that strong. That's called inversion. And then we have a motion that goes the opposite, which is hard to do, and that would be eversion. Inversion, eversion. The ligaments on the medial side are very, very strong. They're known as the deltoid ligaments together. The ones on the outside are called the lateral or collateral ligaments. They are composed of multiple ligaments. These are not that strong, these are very strong. People sprain their ankle this way in an inversion position. Let's work with Bonita, my girlfriend, a little bit. So we got some muscles that we're going to look at now in the leg. And again, anatomically speaking, the leg refers to the lower leg, so to speak, as compared to the thigh, which is on top. First, I look in the posterior compartment, in the back. The overlying musculature in the back is the triceps surae. Most superficially, we have the gastrocnemius, and then deeper to that, we have the soleus. It's a triceps because the gastrocnemius has two heads, a lateral and a medial head. So when we look at the origin point of the gastrocnemius, it's actually right up here, the distal femur. Okay, posterior distal femur. Right around the, sort of between the epicondyles and the popliteal fossa. And then that muscle goes right into the calcaneus, to the more posterior end of the calcaneus, and it anchors it via the calcaneal tendon or the Achilles tendon. And then the underlying muscle is a long, or actually a pretty broad muscle that starts right here. It's called the soleus. So it starts at the posterior tibia, as well as actually the posterior proximal fibula, and as well as the interosseous membrane in between. So it's a pretty big chunk of muscle that also feeds into the calcaneus via the Achilles tendon. And together those muscles are called the triceps surae muscles. The soleus is a very important muscle because a lot of blood goes through it, and if we don't exercise it, a lot of times there's pooling of the blood in the lower extremities because of gravity pushing it down. So when we stand for a long time, it's good to move our toes around, push our foot into the ground and so forth, because what both of those muscles do is they push the toes into the table or into the ground, and that is plantar flexion. Then we go a little